everybody. Welcome to the Communication Essentials podcast. We are back after a while off. But like Mike and I said, we don't really care. It's our schedule. So we are excited. We have a lot of things to talk about today, Mike.
We do. And we do seem to take these extended breaks. It's not that we're, flying off to Aruba somewhere or anything like that. It's just the idea has really got to percolate and get good. And I think we got a great guest here today. Good things to talk about. I'm excited.
We are joined by two other people that normally aren't here with us. I'm going to introduce both of them in a second, because our first topic after being off for a while is something, Mike, that AI can't do. A plant tour. Yes, AI can't take a plant tour. So we are talking today about real humans taking real plant tours. Our coworker, our friend, my longtime colleague, I went to school with him, Eric Knappenberger, is here. We're going to talk to him in a second. Our other guest, producer, she has taken over the Communication Essentials podcast for us. She has said she's wrangling the dads in this episode to save us and all of you from dad jokes that Mike and I may have a tendency to throw out once in a while. So let's start with Macy. Macy, introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I'm Macy, and I am a Kia's marketing intern for this summer.
Yeah, and who'd have thought having a producer on a podcast? I think we've hit the big time. We have.
Was that work? I don't know. And she's at Kent State, Mike. And so speaking of Kent State, another Kent State.
Wait,
Eric.
You're
down to one. Only one OU on the podcast here.
Outnumbered. Darn it. We'll get you next time.
Kent State, but much further before. So
yeah, that's
Eric, who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Going back, 2001 graduate of Kent State, Ben, as we were together there. Yeah. PR Kent program still lives on. Spent the last 20 plus years now in industrial business to business PR. So have taken a journey from the automotive aftermarket to the depths of hydraulic engineering knowledge to everything we do today at IKEA. So I have been in and out of plants, factories, and warehouses, facilities, and otherwise for the better part of 2 decades. So I have some perspectives to share today and look forward to doing it. It informs a lot of the writing that we do here at IKEA, especially in my role as a senior content architect. So looking forward to a great discussion.
Awesome. You're like the Johnny Cash song. You've been everywhere, man. And speaking of your journey, I mean, that's really where we are. Listen, I have known you a long time. I have been in meetings with you. When you are on fire and have passion for something, I get out of the way. And I know one thing you have a passion for is what we do and how it's done. And there is no better way to see that than these plant tours. I think you have been on maybe more than I have. And I've been on a lot, but you have a few thoughts you want to share with us today in terms of why we love these plant tours. I mean, that we're always going to jump and go the chance to go on them, see how it's made, see how our what makes our clients work. Tell us, if we're going to get into it, but the first big one I have for you today to talk about, and we talked a little bit off air when we were getting ready for this, is all the good that can come from what goes on in these facilities. So there really is no better place to learn than on these plant tours. So what are your thoughts? What are your reactions to that?
Yeah, because you're going right to the heart of the matter, right? So you're going to get the up close, look at how everything that you represent, that you write about, that you're otherwise trying to promote out there is either brought together, manufactured, formulated, what have you. I think in 2 decades I've been doing this, I've seen everything made from truck caps to mower switches to paint to home appliances to lights to ATV cooling fans to bearings, hydraulic accumulators, brakes, catalyzed coatings, you name it. I have probably seen it made at some point. And so, of course, especially for people in our industry and for what we do, sometimes you're a little bit removed from the process. Getting to see what your client does up front and again, going, kind of right into to the heart of it, is an invaluable experience in the sense that you're going to get to see every process, kind of like how the raw materials are brought together, all the different quality standards that dictate, how these products are made, including safety processes. And the biggest thing too is you get a very good sense of the scope and the scale of these operations, because sometimes that's hard to appreciate from afar. But when you can see these, sprawling factory floors and these gigantic warehouses and everything else. It's just eye-opening. It brings clarity and context to the whole thing. And so, it's very much a learning experience. It's kind of like going to the museum, if you will, but the museum is a lot cooler and a little bit more modern. So there you go.
It is. It's maybe it's like a grown-up Disneyland kind of thing where you see it in action. Like here's, I don't know, factory land, and you get to check everything out, and there's this hands-on experience. I haven't done as many factory tours as you, obviously, but when I go, I feel like a kid just doing it on, whether it's Disneyland or a factory tour. And I don't know about you, Eric, but when I ask the questions, I feel like they must think I'm a child, or what's with this guy? Like, well, what does this do? Oh, what's that? How fast does it go? Can you do it? Can you turn it on for me? And I'm sure you keep that same excitement even after doing the 100 or so you have done. But just that sort of excitement, I mean, do you bring that with you?
Yeah, and honestly, looking back, I blame PBS for that, because I kind of grew up in the Mr. Rogers era. And if you remember Mr. Rogers, he would often go to his local, whatever it was, to see how something was kind of like Micro, honestly, kind of before the day in a sense, right? Like, how is this made? And so I think I kind of, embody that sense, if you will. When you go in somewhere, you're learning, right? I mean, we're experts in what we do in communications, and we are not experts in what our clients do, but there are people there that are. And so when you're there, you get to hear the stories. You get to, basically sit down and let them tell tales of why this is cool, how we do this, why we do this differently than somebody else. And it's quality and context, again, that doesn't always come through when you're trying to video conference or exchange emails or learn from company materials. You need to go, again, right to the source and hear from the people who know it best. And it's awesome, because these people are all brilliant and talented at the many different roles and functions they have across these manufacturing facilities. They're very proud of that. And if you give them the chance to kind of express that and talk about it, you'd be amazed at all of the kind of, other little learnings that will come along that just don't necessarily come out of everyday conversations.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I think they are willing to talk. Full disclosure, I worked at a factory in the summer when I was in college. And my dad's thinking was, work at a factory, you're going to bust your butt and stay in school because you're going to want a cushy job instead of this. And when I was there, I was like, well, this is great, because I was talking to these people. They're very talkative. They're very fun to just listen to. And I think they always have something to say. And I go back to my kid in a candy store. That was it. I would just say, well, what are you doing here? How's this work? And they want to give you the answers, more so than just about anyone. I think I have more stories from those days than working at the restaurant, and those kind of things.
Yeah, absolutely. There oftentimes are, we're representing product services a lot of the time, but, a lot of the time it is products, it's technologies. And, as you're trying to understand these things, again, from maybe a sell sheet, a catalog, or a brochure, that can be difficult. But if you can have somebody actually standing there with you explaining, hey, this is this feature, this is why it's on this is how we, this is how we put this together to make that happen, you're going to go back and you're going to be able to be a better storyteller. And that's, again, why I go in there all the time, to basically learn and to come away with as much new material as I can, so that we can tell a better story about why something special is happening here at this facility or at this manufacturing plant.
All right, I got a question there. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just asking, when you're doing that, you mentioned a good point of just being there at the moment. You're asking them the questions, they're telling you. So how does it help remembering? Because are you there taking notes? Because I would be of the mind, you're taking some notes, but you don't want to be that guy writing it down because you're seeing everything. So later on, when you're done, does going back to the sounds and the sights and the air help you to remember it even more, and then the words can flow a little bit better because you had that experience and now you're able to translate it a little bit?
Yeah, and this should be basic for folks in our profession, right? If you're in PR, if you're in communications, marketing, advertising, whatever, right? I've had great mentors along the way, and they would kill me if I walked into a factory tour without a notebook in hand, without a phone ready to record, right? What I'm going to see and hear while I'm there, because you're on a research mission. And if you're not taking full advantage of that, then the client's giving you all of this gold that I guarantee is going to kind of get lost in the shuffle after you go back and, kind of forget about it. So two pieces of advice there, always armed with a notebook and some questions in advance. What do I want to know? Is there a story I think I can find here I want to ask somebody about, right? Do I have questions about this product or that thing that I might be able to get while I'm here? And the other thing is with permission, because sometimes factories can be sensitive depending on what's going on there. But if you're on a tour, you can take your phone and you can kind of hold it out, and oftentimes we're given like kind of a guided tour. So I'll record that, and then I'll go back and I'll basically have this whole transcript of what I need to understand about what's really happening in that factory, so I can sort out the really good details later, because that's very hard to capture while you're walking around, taking notes. There's a lot of machine noise sometimes and goings on, and it's gonna be a little tricky. Also, if you're allowed to photograph, it's a great chance to get, obviously shots of the facility, products that you might need, anything else that's going to support those marketing, messaging efforts going forward. It's all there. Take advantage of it. That's where I start.
Yeah, and I think we're going to share some of those unclassified photos, or I'm sorry, classified photos that you snuck and took on all those tours. Now, Macy, do we have those photos ready? No, I'm kidding.
I was like, I didn't get any photos.
With
I haven't had my
permission
phone.
only, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't had my phone taken yet, but so I want to go back to something you said, because I think it transitions really well into your second point, and that was what you were saying about the pride that people have. I have been blown away. I've never been told no, that I can't go on a plant tour, or I might have a little bit of a reputation for getting lost on the plant tour. I might be the guy that stays behind or puts down this hallway, and I like to ask weird or offbeat questions, because I think that's sometimes where you find the best stuff. And there is really nothing like getting to talk to folks on these tours that it's palpable, the pride they have in what they're doing and wanting your questions, almost like they're like, go ahead, try to stump me with some basic questions here. But they are really kind with their time, and you got to remember, they're still on a shift, and there is a lot of pride on display there. I think, to your second point that you're going to talk about next, the human experience.
Yeah.
Something you may not expect to find on a plant tour where you're in a manufacturing facility or whatever, is just how human, to Mike's point, the connections, the relationships, the stories that are made. You can actually feel that that experience when you're on the floor.
You can, and I always start with the idea that in our role, we get the unique chance to kind of see how the world works, right? Because we always get to see behind the scenes in the way that a lot of other people don't. I mean, everybody's seen flashy office buildings and, impressive sports stadiums and cool restaurants and all of those things. But we've all also seen these very cookie cutter, kind of bland, just, industrial parks with these big buildings with these large walls, right? And you're like, well, what goes on in there? And nobody ever really gets to see that unless you're part of that world. And so I start there by saying that it's incredible, again, what actually does happen within those walls, the brilliance that's on display, the levels of technology and innovation that are being integrated on digital levels now in these places, just the actual, the old standard standby processes when it comes to formulating, engineering, manufacturing anything. If you've never seen it up front, it's hard to get a true appreciation of it. Once you do, there's a pride that comes with that, because it's not easy and there's a lot involved, and it takes a hugely coordinated effort to bring that all together. And so when you're part of that, I think it works kind of like being part of a team. You feel your role, you feel the team's success, and then you kind of identify with that, location or company that you work for. And I see that. And that's the pride you're talking about there, Ben, that I think is on display when you get to talk to, especially long timers who have been with a company for a long time. They will tell you, this is why it's so great to work here. This is why we consistently beat out the competition, right? It's all of these folks around me. It's how we bring this whole big orchestra together every day. And from that flows these stories we've been talking about, how the company succeeds, why it goes the extra mile for its customers, etc. And so I think the pride is rooted in that, is that it's, again, it's underrated just how, brilliant and amazing some of these operations truly are.
Yes.
It's pretty infectious too, because it is fascinating to see what they do, and then their excitement about, this is what I'm doing, this is how it works, this is how many I do in a day. And like, even if you go and think, well, I'm just going to fake interest in this, and it's like, nope, you are sucked in, and this is hypnotic, this is really cool, I don't want to go to the next stage, because you're starting to share their perspective a little bit, which then I think when it comes time to report on what you saw, however it's going to be, it's stronger, as a result. It's more reflective of the individual, company, organization, whatever.
The truth of most companies is that their story starts on the manufacturing floor.
Yes.
And I think that in a lot of ways it comes right back there too. So again, if you can get to the source, and if you've got a true enthusiasm for learning why this place has been successful or this company has succeeded for so long, right? That's you're never going to steer wrong from there.
Yeah, you had me at steel-toed boots is what I usually tell our clients that are like, you want to go on a plant tour, and that's a great to transition into the last and or third and final point here is there, from my perspective, in an agency and really as working in an agency that I do know, Mike said, like, people that want to go, oh yeah, I'm on a plant tour. That's never happened here. People truly do want to go on that tour, and they do it with two things in mind. One is, hey, I'm going in to impress my new client. I want to put these questions together and ask these questions. Two is, go in and learn. I need to learn quickly. So your third point is kind of, how do you put these experiences to use? That's your big thing, is all that stuff that you learned and the time you're taking from people, which is valuable. What's next? How does that get put into action?
Yeah, it becomes accumulative in the sense that you're not going to walk back with every answer you need or uncover every story. But now you're going to have probably some good contacts you can reach out to either further, the messaging, or to kind of mine for content, right? And you're going to have the ability to relate to that company's culture a lot better. Even little things like knowing, when is this factory really hopping during the day? When's the best time to reach out to somebody here? Are Fridays, for example, a little crazier maybe than Wednesdays, sort of a thing, right? So it starts to, I would say, endear yourself to the client's rhythm and just their, again, culture. So it can definitely benefit you that way as well. So you start to roll these little things into the work that we're now doing, right, as we go forward. And oftentimes, if I've toured a factory once, probably going to get the chance to do it again, because sometimes you don't see everything at once, or sometimes there's new machinery, new products to talk about. And so the next time going back, right, it might be a chance just to dig a little bit deeper. So just like little last piece of advice is to definitely collect business cards as you go. Also stock up on any new material that client may have, as far as, catalogs, sell sheets, brochures, etc. Literature that explains kind of what's going on at the factory sometimes is valuable reference that you can take back. And always thank people for their time and contributions while you're there, because they're doing a great job. And it's not often sometimes that they get the chance to kind of be told that, I think, from people from outside the organization. Sometimes factory tours don't happen that often. So just be mindful to show your appreciation.
Yeah, I would agree. I that you and I, coming from Kent, kind of heard the same theories on getting ready for plant tours. And you had mentioned something to me that was mentioned by the great Zoe McCatherine, a professor of mine at Kent, and her lesson that she taught about dressing appropriately for plant tours. When you go in, nobody wants to see you in a tie or a jacket or anything like that. And that was not her way of saying, you need to throw on, you need to dress down or anything like that. It was, dress for your audience so you can make that connection, because you want to start to build trust and show that you're in their world, because that's the only way you're going to get the information out, like you said, that you can put to use. You would be amazed at the contacts 20 years later that have moved into different positions within companies, or are still there, that I can still go back to and pick their brain on things that really still find their way into strategy or content. This is a topic that has a lot of passion and love wrapped up in it from my perspective. I know yours as well, and Mike's, because this is truly the differentiator when it comes to information and knowing what your client does versus understanding and being a part of what your client does. So just my 2 cents onto the end of your advice there, which I agree 100% with. I cannot speak enough about the importance of all of this. It's labeled a plantor, but it's so much more. You get so much more out of it, not just that day, but for years to come.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, we lost you for a second, but you're back.
Yes,
and I didn't steal any of your jokes. We definitely want to end here as we normally do.
Yeah.
Before we do, Eric, you here, it has been overdue in terms of all the things we could talk about to actually finally getting you on. I have a feeling you will be joining us again in the near future to maybe talk about some AI, some non-human stuff, AI. But so thank you very much. Glad you're here, and always love talking about these things with you. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Mike, bring us home before Macy gives us the hook.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we try to get a random thought in here, and just what you were saying, Eric, before, that PBS, the How It's Made, that show, it just comes on randomly. You're flipping, there it is. And I always tell myself, I'm not going to get sucked in. I'm not going to get sucked in. And it'll be like, today we're making the ends of shoelaces or a pen cap or something. You're like, all right, I'll give it 2 minutes because, I'm being nice to PBS. And sure enough, within a couple minutes, you're like, you're just stuck. You're enthralled. I mean, you can smell smoke in your house, and you'll be like, all right, until I hear the fire alarm, I'm not leaving. Okay, it's the fire alarm, but it's not the close one. And just the idea that on my screen is so interesting. But the actual plant tour that you take, it's the immersive 360 feel of how it's made. And that's what's a lot of fun with it. That's why I love it. It's how it's made in real life. And when I go on a plant tour, that's what I think is going to happen. And I love it.
Absolutely.
Yes. Love it. All right, good. We did it. I got to say, having a producer here, it kind of puts some pressure on. I feel like, guys, we got to stick to no dad jokes, no random tangents, no sports references, which is awesome given Eric's here. Macy, any last words before we wrap up?
I just want to say that you guys did pretty well shortening those dad jokes. I'm very proud of you all, and I think you guys did great. I was happy to be here.
Well, try to do better next time for you, Macy.
I think things have run very smoothly, so thank you. I'm glad to have you, Eric. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thanks,
Mike, let's do this again a lot quicker than last time now.
That's a promise. It's a promise. All right. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
All right. Bye.